Hi there everyone, Lars here with another video game story review, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And Deltarune is the adventure that keeps on giving. Having already done 3 videos that have touched on the story by Toby Fox's Deltarune, I thought there wasn't much left to say on the matter until he came out with Chapter 2. And if you want to know what I've already said, check out those videos and definitely play the game Deltarune if you haven't already. However, when I pitched the idea to the rest of the harem that we review the storytelling within video games, I just knew I wanted to tackle Deltarune again. It's just such a fun game, and playing through it again, I've noticed even more about the Dark World, and the possibly unfolding plot and story details all around it. I mean, the opening of the game when you choose your name pretty much gives it away that Gaster's behind all of this, because as you choose your name, if you decide to type in Gaster, it forces the game to restart until you choose something different. Questionable. But not only that, there's a lot at the end of the game that hints at a much longer history between the Lightners and the Darkners than whatever shenanigans Kris and Azrael got up to before Azrael left for college. I mean, there is a picture from Father Alvin in the abandoned classroom. This place is old, and it seems rather suspicious. What does Father Alvin have to do with all of this? And also makes me think that Gerson also played a part at some point with the Dark World. There are just so many freaking references to him all over town, and so many clues that the Dark World has played a massive role in the development of the town. So, yeah, the story is big. And Kris and Susie standing before the Dark Fountain echoes what Ralsie says to Kris before they go through the Great Door and begin the quest. And by paying even closer attention to the story and the world building that Ralsie reveals, the upcoming chapters are truly about the quest to save both worlds, the worlds of the Lightners and the worlds of the Darkners. And not just from whatever calamity is coming, but that each chapter is going to be about helping people around the town resolve their issues. The Darkners exist to help the Lightners. How? Well, by helping the Lightners to face their worst selves and overcoming that, or helping them to come to terms with personal issues, or in any other kind of way. It's honestly super fascinating, and there are just so many potential things that could happen. It's super exciting to think about what the next chapters of Deltarune will bring. And just thinking about how the Darkners are there to help the Lightners become better, this is easily reflected in Susie's journey throughout the first chapter, as she uses Kris and Ralsie to cheat on a project, tries to take the easy way out on all of her problems, can't find food, decides to fully be the bad guy, which is telling because what we've learned is that while she is seen as a school bully, no one has been on the receiving end of her torment. And dealing with having no friends and obviously some familial problems, Susie has a ton to work through. And by the end of the first chapter, she is well on her way to not only being a hero, but being her better self. That is what I mean, how all of this is just so well reflected in her journey. There's just a bunch going on in the world of Deltarune. It is amazing. You can make so many different videos, so many different theories, and everything about this game, and we're only 1 chapter in. But the thing I especially want to focus on is Toby's use of the theme of friendship in Deltarune. This game plays off the same ideas as from Undertale, that the best way to win the game is to make friends with all of the monsters. Except in this case, you're not just making friends with the monsters, but also with the Darkners. And I want to focus on the friendships surrounding the 3 heroes, Kris, Ralsie, and Susie. And then I want to discuss some of the spicy potential for other relationships. Without further ado, let me address Susie. After playing this game, it has struck me just how interesting and engaging Susie is as a character. It would be fair to say that she is the main character of this chapter, and even if we are controlling Kris, and yep, this is important, that we as the player are controlling the poor kid, and more on that later. But Susie starts off as a very misunderstood bully figure, and as we come to learn, Susie is largely who she is because she's living up to the demeaning way people have treated her for so long, which is largely due to her inability to connect with others. It's a very vicious cycle. But Susie goes from a face-munching ne'er-do-well to a bona fide friend and hero. Her path to that point is an interesting one because she really rejects the notion of being a hero with Kris and Ralsie at the very beginning of the game, and she goes out of her way to be mean to both of them. Her brash and violent ways get on Ralsie's nerves, and when he points out that Susie did nothing to help them beat K-Round in their second face-off with the adorable little beast, Susie happily sides with Lancer. And why? Well, Lancer, the son of the King of Spades, has already looked up to Susie and genuinely complimented her for who she is. Lancer has given Susie the validation and praise she so desperately craves from others. So, she readily joins up with him. Her time as a villain is honestly hilarious, and she's actually very well-meaning when you think about it. She wants to help Lancer, she wants to have some real fun, and she fully lives up to the status of a bully that she has internalized within herself. But this all changes in the battle with Kris and Ralsie. If you take your time playing through all the options to win over Susie before working on Lancer, you get some interesting information. Namely, that Kris knows Susie. Kris compliments Susie's hair, which gets her flustered. Kris offers her a picnic basket of worms, which she almost takes them up on, except that there is no picnic basket, so she sees kind of the ruse right there. And Kris acts animalistic like she does, trying to imitate her, which reveals just how silly she herself has been acting this whole time. And all of which harkens back to an undisclosed past between the two of them. Honestly, we don't know why Susie has been treated the way she has, and we don't know exactly the full story between her and Kris either. We can only infer stuff. But in this fight, when you convince Lancer to join your side, Susie decides to come with. She doesn't want to lose her new friend in Lancer, but being with Kris and Ralsie really isn't all that bad either. Going to the castle with Lancer and sharing the dark candy with him, Susie finally begins to internalize something new. That friends are good, and life is better, sweeter with them. So it comes as a real shock to Susie when they're all betrayed by Lancer, and right when she's undergoing such a personal change too. The nerve of him! So her chance for revenge swiftly comes after breaking out of prison. But she makes the right choice and spares Lancer. Susie finally learns to communicate, to be kind, to forgive. All of which are essential elements to any good friendship. And she is able to patch things up with Ralsie in her own way by no longer teasing him. And she makes up with Kris by offering to work together with him and learn how to act. Even if it puts her out of her comfort zone. And to be sure, if you push her too far, she won't flirt or anything. But she will work in perfect sync with Kris and Ralsie, taking down Jevil and using a peaceful, though still violent solution to defeat K-Round in the third round of battle. And it all culminates in Susie keeping her word and trying to talk things out with King. She also steps in to save Kris right as King is about to do to them what Susie had previously threatened to do to Kris back at school. Susie becomes a hero and a true friend by the end of it all, and she is eager to connect with everyone you've befriended in the Dark World, and she takes her part in the prophecy seriously by the end. She also has forged a strong bond with Kris and wants to return to the Dark World with them. Susie's growth is tremendous, and it all revolves around the theme of friendship. Next, we have Ralsie. He is such an interesting figure, an isolated prince of the dark with no subjects for his empty kingdom, and it sounds like he's been really lonely for a very long time. He is eager, willing to please, eager to validate, and do whatever is necessary to help others, even if it embarrasses or inconveniences him. This isn't exactly healthy, because it means that he can be taken advantage of. But one thing that can be said for Ralsie is that he is very good at reading the room and adapting. He readily confesses his part in alienating Susie and promises to help. He can tell when Kris isn't doing well and offers support. And his boundless capacity to forgive others is honestly incredible. If you go with the squad that cannot be named, he quickly gets over it because it will include Susie and endears Lancer to them all. And when Susie is looking to reconcile, he doesn't miss a beat. And by that time, he's grown some backbone and is able to say that he won't accept any more teasing. He is in many ways the kind of friend that we would all count ourselves lucky to have. However, that naivety does get him and the gang into some serious trouble. Healing King was a bad move and endangered the entire party. After getting saved, Ralsie admits that there are some people that they have to fight against. Even if you have fought Jebel, there's still a way to beat him peacefully, even though, oh my gosh, it just sucks. But there are characters like King who won't allow that. His conversation with Susie is poignant because it shows that he can indeed grow, and it hints at further development for him throughout the rest of Deltarune. Ralsie is the heart of the gang and the one most likely to keep everyone together in the upcoming chapters. Now we come to Kris. This is where things get interesting because the player is controlling Kris, and a lot of the friendships feel like you're doing. However, the thing to realize is this, that even though you are the one who is controlling Kris, the things that Kris says or does are all theirs. Everything that you do through Kris is ultimately theirs. You're just forcing Kris to do that. You see, Kris has their own unique, bizarre personality. They are obviously a prankster, they're adventurous and imaginative. All things that easily make someone an outsider. It's clear that the class all knows Kris and gets along pretty well enough with them, but no one has any strong connection with Kris at school. And I remember this all too well myself back in high school. I was the outgoing strange guy who talked in movie quotes and had wacky ideas and stories to tell. It was hard to find people who didn't know me or hadn't heard of me, but I didn't have any strong friendships with anyone until I was a senior. Anyway, enough about me. Despite not having any strong connections with anyone aside from Azrael, who's at college, and their parents, Kris has good relations with some people in his class. Monster Kid is talkative with Kris, Jockington is cool with Kris, and Caddy seems chill with them. Temmie is Temmie, and Birdie is notably an antagonist towards Kris. And Noelle is a sweet thing who has a long history with Kris, but not the best relationship because of how their families have drifted apart over time, and a traumatic experience with Kris jumping out from underneath the bed to scare Noelle. And you see, when you take all of this together and you look at it, you begin to realize that Kris still lacks any real connection, or the chance to be themselves with others who fully accept them, like Azrael did. And when you walk around the town at the end of the game, this gives you further insight into how Kris followed Azrael everywhere. And like Ralsie, Kris wanted to please others. They bought food for the older teens, hung out with them all the time, and they were there for some of Azrael's shenanigans. Still, it all comes back to how close and Azrael were. And Kris has been aloof and lost without anyone to be with ever since Azrael left. However, we do get plenty of hints about Kris knowing Susie, and maybe even wanting to spend some time with her. They knew about Susie being very hungry, pretty much starved, and liking worms. Kris knew that before Susie herself reveals to Roolk's card that she's totally fine with a platter of worms. She would love to have that. They know Susie wants friendship and that she wants to be complimented. She wants to be loved. And Kris even breaks the control that the player has over them and steps in to save Susie from King. And Birdie insinuates that Kris has a thing for dragons by telling Kris that they still need to bring back the book about drawing dragons, and then proceeds to describe Susie to Kris. Birdie's a jerk, but he's not an idiot, and he's probably seen what's up. So it's clear that Kris wants to have a connection with Susie. But the problem is, Kris didn't want this to happen the way that it did, because we as the players forced them to do it. It probably would have turned out very differently had we left Kris alone. We just don't know. Would Kris have even proceeded to form any sort of connection with Susie? It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the future of the game. Now, talking about Kris and Susie brings me to the spicy matter of the video. While Susie, Ralsie, and Kris are all growing and developing as a result of their strange friendship, there is an ever-present matter of shipping. Now, I bring this up because these potential relationships could mean a lot for the game and its characters. And while there are a plethora of different ships, I'm only going to address the two that are actually set up in the game, not what others fantasize about with their headcanons. We all have our headcanons, but I'm only going to address the ones that have any real solid grounding there in the game. The first is Kris and Susie. As I've already outlined, Kris wanted to make a connection with Susie already before Chapter 1 even began. And I've gone into exhaustive detail about that with my cruisy analysis video. So let me sum up with what this potential romance would mean for them both. Kris and Susie both come from similar backgrounds of being outcasts and misunderstood. They have already stood up for each other and care for the other. It would be fun to see them continue to grow as a couple, support one another, and be themselves along the journey. And because the game centers so squarely on them and Ralsie, there's plenty of time to develop that relationship and make it meaningful and not just some sweet little side gig. Seriously, for more details on this, please go check out my other video. Next, we have Susie and Noelle. It is crystal clear that Noelle has a huge crush on Susie. She volunteered to go get chalk with Susie. She stood up for Susie. She desperately wants advice from her dad about how to approach Susie, and she wants to know more about Susie from Kris. And I find it interesting that you, as the player, can sabotage all of that. I wonder if that is something that could play out in the later chapters. A potential love triangle between the three characters? I don't know, but it is adorable that Noelle immediately thinks to win Susie over by bringing a ton of colored chalk in a lunchbox for her. You go, girl. The thing is that this relationship would do a lot for both girls. Susie needs love and validation in her life, and Noelle would be more than happy to give it and be supportive of Susie. Noelle also needs to be more independent and forthright, and being around Susie would certainly encourage that, because otherwise that girl just might walk all over Noelle. There are many ways in which the two of them would grow, and it would bring Susie into friendlier circles and help others accept her. And with everything that's going on in Noelle's life, from her dad's illness to her mom's neglect, having someone else she cares about there for her would be very nice, to say the least. It's also nice to note that either option here, Kris and Susie or Noelle and Susie, would be good for the story, and that there isn't any one clear-cut winner. I find that intriguing, and it's yet another way in which the players can engage with the game. Since Deltarune might end the same way each time you play it, the things you do on the side do affect the overall story and what you learn from it. These potential romances could just be the extra kind of spice that plays wonderfully into whatever cruel endgame Gaster has in store for all of us. Toby. What Toby has in store for all of us. To wrap it up, Deltarune, like Undertale, is a game all about relationships. But unlike Undertale, Deltarune spends far more time with these relationships, developing them over the course of the game and giving all of these characters interesting personalities, stories, motivations, feelings, and connections. As a result, Deltarune, even in demo form, has such a rich narrative, and it feels compelling, despite the fact that it is far from complete. This is why the theme of friendships, if done well, can make a story so powerful and captivate its audience long after they're done with it. Deltarune, therefore, has my unapologetic recommendation. If you haven't played it yet, get on it. And if you have played it, or if you need a break after Jevil kicks your butt for the 100th time, then check out our other videos here on YouTube, or head over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, for more writing advice and insights. If you want to connect with us, please check out our Discord or our subreddit. Thank you for coming along on this adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.